Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Now 2020 is already shaping up to be a tumultuous rollercoaster year, and I have no doubt that that rollercoaster will continue as the year progresses. So in today's video I wanted to reflect on some of the things that I've said and thought about here on the channel in the past as it relates to buying gold and silver, but put it into the context of 2020 right now with everything that's going on in this big wide world. I think it's a really important thing to do as a beginner or even seasoned stacker, to constantly evaluate what's going on as it relates to you and your situations. Do want to put my little disclaimer in here to say that this is not a financial advice video. I will be going over a lot of kind of basics on buying silver and gold, so if you are a brand new stacker you might glean a lot of information from this, but it's important that you know and understand that any financial decisions that you make are yours and yours alone, and they are just my thoughts and opinions. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions as we go throughout the video, so please comment down below. All I ask is be respectful of mine and other people's opinions. Now, as I've said, 2020 is shaping up to be quite the tumultuous year so far. We've seen lots of things happening. There's Brexit to look forward to later in the year, as well as the current issues around health and the coronavirus, but I don't really want to delve too deep into that side of things. I want to relate specifically to thoughts on metals going forward into 2020, or the rest of 2020 I should say, because the markets, the financial markets, have been taking a pounding this last couple of weeks. There will of course be a sort of marginal recovery at some point, but it will be very, very much a roller coaster for the coming couple of weeks and months. And I was recently having a really interesting discussion with a very good friend of mine about precious metals. He has never bought precious metals before in his life, and he was seeing the markets. He's got a little nest egg that he saved up, and he was seeing the markets and saying that stocks and shares are looking really very good at the moment because they are very low in price. And to a certain extent, yes, I would agree. There are definitely price points right now for certain stocks and shares and investment funds which would be very, very attractive, but you just never know whether or not they're going to go down even further. And I have always said here on my channel that diversification is key. But back to the very sort of core central point of this is, if you are a beginner, if you are somebody who hasn't got any of this yellow or silver shiny stuff, and you have been starting to see more people talking about it, it's started to become on your radar more and more, I will always say, and I did in fact say to my friend as well, what's the reason for buying gold or silver? It's not really an investment. I've done a couple of videos in the past talking about it as a, I use the word investment, but it's very much a inflationary hedge. It's an insurance policy. It's a financial product almost that you can use to offset the value of your home currencies. And, that's something to think about. If you're in this for the quick gain, the quick turnaround, it's not going to happen. Yes, there might be some gains, some significant gains in gold and silver over the short term, but it's all relative to the price of your currency. And the one thing which I will say to any beginner or even any seasoned stacker who perhaps I've been victim to this as well. You kind of look at this stuff and you see the numbers on the page and you think, wow, I've made quite a lot of paper profit here. You never realize any profits or losses until you actually sell, and everything is relative to the price of your currency, and the buying power of what you get at the other end is what counts. So the biggest top tip that I can say, and again, this is not financial advice, but the biggest top tip I can say is that if you have access to other income streams, other investments that perhaps you want to have a bigger return on over time, of course stocks and shares over the course of a 25-year period are going to far outstrip gold and silver. Gold and silver are an inflationary hedge, and it's really important to understand that. So for a lot of people, you get drawn in by the idea of buying at a certain price, seeing silver or gold skyrocket, and then selling at a certain price. That's all very good and well, but it can actually be a lot harder than you think. And that brings me on to probably my most important point to make and reiterate, and that is all about exit strategies. Now, for me, exit strategies haven't really changed in this 2020 year that we're seeing. For me, it's all about the long-term pension stack. But if you are looking at this as a shorter-term investment, have a good think about how you might look to sell these lovely shiny things that you've got, and where you might be able to sell them quickly if you needed to in a pinch. And this was part of the fundamental conversation I had with my friend who was concerned about the liquidity of certain items. And we were talking about silver as well. And here in the UK, sadly, there is this real restriction in the short-term investment sort of strategy with regards to silver because of the extra taxes that we have in the European Union. It often is about 15 to 20% over spot unless you can get a second-hand market piece. for silver, and that is just not a good sensible buy if you are forced to sell quickly, because dealers don't give you more than spot price, or if you have to sell quickly you won't get more than spot price, even less sometimes for items like this, which are not hallmarks and not coins, not easily recognizable or testable. So definitely things to think about, and gold is very, very much more that sort of safer, it's a typical safe haven thing, but it's very much a safer investment for people here in the United Kingdom, and I think that's going to only be exacerbated over time with things like Brexit coming up later in the year. If we do not get access to free trade agreements from Europe, then we really will be paying sort of 30, 40, 50% premiums on silver, which would be an absolute disaster for the metal. But if you hold it beforehand, perhaps that'll help. I don't know. There's a lot to factor in on that side of things. But certainly from my friend's perspective, gold was very much more that decision point. And it was very funny. This friend actually ended up buying some gold, and he then messaged me saying, "Does that make me a stacker now?" And I said, "Well, your very first purchase was not a small amount of gold, so yes, that makes you a pretty hardcore stacker, I'm afraid, my friend," which is good and bad. There's elements here, and it was nice and refreshing to have that conversation with somebody who is a complete kind of novice and beginner in this market, and it did get me thinking about, there's an awful lot to consider out there, and it can be very, very daunting. And that's the one thing that I will sort of pick up on now. If you are looking at these markets for the first time and you're not sure, it is so important to try and educate yourself as much as possible. Try and talk with people on here on YouTube or on forums. The Silver Forum is a phenomenal place for knowledge. Just learn about everything that you can do, because there's a lot of people, and myself included, who have bought things in the past that they will have regretted because it's just not performed very well, or it's proved to be a lot more of a difficult item to sell on. So there's definitely things to think about there. Next I'm going to talk about is the type of silver now, or gold. I've got quite a lot of different things out here on the table. My next sort of, top tip for beginners or seasoned stackers, if we are going to see some significant gains in gold and silver, and you've got a larger budget for these type of things, my thoughts would be around capital gains. Now, I've got a couple of coins out here on the table which are capital gains exempt, and those are these Britannias and this big 5 sovereign piece. Capital gains is when you make a profit on a physical asset and sell it, and you make a certain profit. Here in the United Kingdom, you get a certain allowance in that category, but if you go above it, you have to pay taxes on it. Come on, camera, you can focus on these. Come on, they're nice and shiny gold. It's bad light here today, again in the United Kingdom. There we go. So yes, capital gains is a really important thing to factor in. Certainly if you've got a higher budget, if even as small as 5 or 6 ounces of gold, if gold were to double in price, you'd be pretty close to the capital gains allowance if you sold everything in one fell swoop. So there's definitely things to factor in from that side of things. In terms of coins versus bars, I even like gold, there's little bars in assay cards like this. I will always say, and I have always said, that I think that these are not a good idea, certainly relative to coins. Often you'll find fractionals have high premiums, but also there's an awful lot of fakes out there. It does not take an awful lot to produce something that looks pretty good as a 1 or 2 or 5 gram gold bar in an assay card, and that can be easily used to fool people. And of course, 5 grams of gold is worth 160, 70 pounds, something like that. So you can really be falling victim to quite easy fakes with these things, whereas coins are a much easier thing to test and regulate and look at and see. And they're of course standardized, and you often don't have them in assay cards like this, so you can actually physically test them, and that I think is really, really important. And again, they're a lot more commonly recognized throughout the world. People like them. People collect coins rather than bars, so there's definitely things to think about from that perspective. In terms of silver, I've got obviously exclusively silver bars out here on the table. You can certainly invest in silver bars if you know how to test these things effectively with specific gravity tests, or if you've got XRF machines. That's something that you can definitely do quite easily, but I would suggest, again, coins for silver is probably going to be better than bars in terms of the future sellability. And it all relates to this future sellability, because ultimately, no matter what you do and how you spend your cash here in 2020, whether it be on precious metals, whether it be on stocks and shares or whatever, it's how you get your money out of the other end. And that is the most important thing. The exit strategy part of this video that I talked about earlier is so critical, is so key. If you don't have your exit strategies in place, you can and probably will fall victim to the biggest pitfall of silver, being forced to sell at an unfortunate time or an unopportune moment, and that will cost you cash and money. The last thing that I want to say is it's very important for people to understand that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. There are a lot of channels out there, there are a lot of news outlets out there, media outlets that will and do pump to a certain extent the idea that silver will skyrocket or gold will skyrocket. Now, I'm not going to say that's never going to happen, because there is always the possibility of it happening. But the realistic proposition of silver going to $100,000 an ounce is just unlikely. So bear that in mind. Now, my real world pragmatism pessimist in me is, you know, it rules what I think about this metal shiny stuff here, and it just is not going to happen. If it does happen, we'll have a lot more things on our problem plate than just the price of silver and gold. So that's kind of my thoughts and summary for 2020 as it relates to me and my strategy. You know, and perhaps to seasoned stackers out there, for those of you who've been watching now for the last, what we're at, 12 minutes or so, you know, there is some merit to still buying gold in 2020, I think. There is, right now at the time of filming, there is scope for the price to go up. There's also a little bit of scope for the price to go down because of the value of various currencies in this world marketplace that we are in. But I do think that if you are buying for 25 years time, you know, 20 years, 25, 30 years time, that ultimately your goals should really be the same, and at some point in that 25-year period you will be buying gold or silver that is worth more in terms of that raw price point that it is now. So, you know, part of it is just get used to it. Part of it is if you buy now and it goes down, then perhaps in the future you'll be able to buy at a lower price, or if it buys and it goes up, then you've already kind of won on paper. So not to obsess over it is really, really key. For me anyway, I like to think about, you know, just once you've made that decision, don't regret it. Don't live with the regrets that you make. Don't live with hindsight. It's not the healthiest thing to do. So that's my thoughts on silver and gold in 2020. It's certainly shaping up to be an interesting year. I hope everybody out there is having a happy, healthy, safe year so far. There is an awful lot going on in the world right now, and I do wish everybody out there all the very best for not just only silver and gold, but just general health and well-being. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video this week. If you have, please put a thumbs up on it and share it around on your social media. And if you'd like to see videos from us in the future, then please make sure you hit that subscribe button. As I said at the start of the video, if you'd like to share your thoughts and opinions on this subject, I know that a lot of beginners will look to comment sections of videos like this for thoughts and opinions and advice. So please feel free to comment. All I ask is that you be respectful of mine and other people's opinions. Otherwise, that's it from us. Thank you one and all for watching. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead. And as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.